over because we weren't really in there. Okay, so we're looking at function notation. This letter out here on the outside of the parentheses is the name of the function. Whatever letter they put on the inside is telling you what variable they're using for the input. And this expression over here tells you how to get your output, which will be your answer. So when it says find h of 7, that is your input that you're going to put into the expression x plus 5. So what we're actually going to do is 7 plus 5, which gives us 12. So on the first half of this, it's going to go pretty fast because we're just putting basically the number that they give us into the function. So over here I have f of n. So n is my input variable. So when it says find f of 6, that means 6 is going in where n is. So I will have negative 2 times 6, which is negative 12. Then they get a little bit more complicated down here on number 3. We have f of x with this formula, and it says find f of 5. 5 has to go in for both of the x's. So I'm going to have negative 3 times 5 squared minus 3 times 5. And you can use a calculator with this, but we wouldn't really have to. This would be negative 3 times 25, which would make that part negative 75. This part would be minus 15. So negative 75 minus 15 would be negative 90. So if we go over to number 4, 7 is going to go in for both of the x's. So we will have 7 squared minus 4 times 7, which would be 49 minus 28, which gives us 21. If I make a math error, tell me, because I'm doing these in my head.
No, I won't be checking.
You should be checking. Okay, so down here on number 5, we have x squared plus 5. We're going to put in negative 5. Something to remember when we input negative 5, especially if you're using a calculator. On scientific calculators, you have to have parentheses on this, or you will get a negative answer when it should be positive, because negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25, and then if you add 5, you should get 30. And then on number 6, we're going to put negative 4 into both of these. So that'd be 2 times negative 4 squared plus 4 times negative 4. So that's going to be 2 times 16, which is 32. And this would end up being negative 16. So 32 minus 16 is 16. So those are pretty straightforward. Those were all polynomial functions. And then we get down to 7 and 8, we have some exponential functions. We've done exponential functions before. When we put this power in, we get 3 to the negative 2 power. Word of caution, I'm not looking for decimals, and that's what your calculator is going to give you. So I'm going to review how negative powers work. If I have 3 to the negative 2 power, that means we need to do the reciprocal 1 over 3 squared, which would be 1/9. So if you're using your calculator, you could do 3 squared on there, but I want the fraction, right, Colton?
Yes.
Okay, so you got all this negative powers. Remember how to do it? Okay, so on number 8, when I put 2 in for A, I'm going to have 3 to the 2 plus 1 power, which would be 3 to the 3rd. So 3 times 3 is 9 times another 3 is 27. So we want fractions or integers on all of these on 1 through 8. Now 9 through 16, I'm going to slow down a little bit because this is going to be the new information that we're looking at this year. Instead of just putting numbers into the function, we're going to put expressions into the function. This part is not as easy. There's a lot more algebra. So let's take a look at number 9. So my input is a binomial n plus 4. I'm going to take that and replace the n in my formula with n plus 4. So I'm going to have 2, and then I'm going to put the n plus 4 in parentheses, where the n was, and then subtract 5. So there's going to be a little distribution going on here to simplify this all the way down. We're not going to get a numerical answer. It's still going to be an expression, but we're going to simplify it as much as possible. So if I distribute the 2, we get 2n plus 8, and then I still have minus 5. So I can take 8 minus 5 and say that it is 2n plus 3. So you will have a variable in the answer if there's a variable in your input. But you have to remember that you're replacing this n with the whole expression, not multiplying them or something weird like that. So on number 10, my input is over here as t squared. That's going to go into the equation where the t is. I'm going to replace the t with t squared, so I'll have t squared minus 1, and that one doesn't have anything to simplify, so that's it. That's the answer. All right, on number 11, this whole thing is my input that's going to go in where the x is. So I'm going to take x out, and I'm going to replace it with x plus 3. And then I still have minus 2 on the end. So we can simplify that one a little bit. 3 minus 2 is 1. So we get x plus 1. Okay. So you're putting in everything that's inside the parentheses over here into the formula, replacing the x that's in there with something new. So on number 12, we're taking this 3x, replacing the x that's in the formula. So I have negative 2 before the x, that stays. But instead of x, I'm going to replace it with 3x and then add 1. So I like to use parentheses when I put that in there, just so it helps me remember that I'm multiplying. So negative 2 times 3x would be negative 6x, and then you just have plus 1 on the end. Okay, so each of these is a little bit different, but the idea is the same. You're taking the input expression, putting it into the formula, and coming up with a new expression. So on number 13, I'm going to take a over 2, or a halves, and replace the a over here. Because it's a fraction, I'm going to use parentheses, because both the numerator and denominator are going to get squared. And then we're going to add 4. So we're going to go ahead and square that. So I square the a, you get a squared. I'm going to square the 2, so 2 squared is 4. And my final answer will be a squared over 4 plus 4. So we're going to do something similar over here, but this one's going to look a little different because there's no squared. I have x over 2. That's going to go in where this x is. So I have a 3 in front. Then I'm going to have x halves and plus 4. So we can put these together. I can multiply them if I change the 3 into a fraction. How do I make a whole number into a fraction?
Reduce it. No, make it improper. Put it over 1.
Put it over 1. So I'm going to have 3 times x, which is 3x. 1 times 2 is 2. And then plus 4 on the end. And we are almost done. All right, so on number 15, they're going to have us take 2x, put it in where the x is. So I'm going to have 2 times 2x plus 4. So 2 times 2x is 4x, and then plus 4. So simplify whatever you put in there. The last one, I'm going to take negative y and put it in where the t is. So I'm going to have 4 times negative y minus 5. What do you figure 4 times negative y is?
4y.
How about negative 4y? There we go. And then just minus 5.